Good evening and welcome to a special edition of 60 Minutes as we go inside the biggest murder investigation in Queensland's history, the hunt for Daniel Morcombe's killer. It's an extraordinary covert operation to outsmart and capture the worst kind of monster, an opportunistic predator who can't control himself when it comes to sexually molesting young boys. Tonight, Brett Peter Cowan's other victims are courageously speaking for the first time. A father of three who nearly 30 years ago was Cowan's first victim, and a shattered woman who was Cowan's girlfriend at the time of his second attack. Their stories are haunting. Also, you'll hear exclusive details of the moment Cowan was arrested and how forensic experts found Daniel's body. And there, every step of the way, through 10 long years, were Daniel's parents, Bruce and Denise, who vowed to never give up until they found their boy and his killer was caught. It's unbearably cruel and desperately unfair, but a family gathering for the Morcombes means a visit to the cemetery.
Remember Daniel used to always bring flowers?
Yeah, he liked them.
After school I'd get...
Always picked them for you.
Because this is where Daniel is. And nothing can ever change that.
Makes it look better, hey?
Yeah, it's dusty, yes.
It's now more than 10 years since Daniel was murdered. A decade of despair for Bruce and Denise, Daniel's older brother Dean, and Brad, Daniel's twin. What is it that you miss the most about Daniel?
Probably just being a normal family. He always used to bring me flowers and buy little knickknacks, but he's always going to be that 13-year-old, isn't he? Everyone knows that face.
Is there something in particular you miss about your son?
I think, you know, to watch him grow up and become the man he should have been, you know.
Well, being his twin, now when it comes to your birthday, which is a joint birthday with Daniel, what are those moments like?
They're always hard. I suppose I've had 10 birthdays now without him, so not that they get any easier, but I remember the first one, 12 days after he disappeared, and that was terrible.
And because he disappeared so close to Christmas, what is Christmas like in your family every year?
He still gets a seat at the table with his photo on the table, and he always gets a cheers and with Christmas and that. But yeah, I guess it's not the same as it would have been.
Bruce and Denise Morcombe are the embodiment of good triumphing over evil.
Everyone back, we're live, don't move.
They've devoted the past 3,752 days since Daniel disappeared to finding him and catching his killer, Brett Peter Cowan. And then you heard those 3 words, guilty, guilty, guilty.
I muttered under my breath, yes. I wanted to scream out, but I just knew I couldn't do that. But I said yes, and I turned around and I saw Bruce's eyes were watering, Dean and Bradley were in tears, and it was, still can't believe it. We said we'd get justice, and that's what we've got. We'll go and visit Daniel on the weekend and let him know. We made a promise to him, and that's what we've done. We don't break promises, do we?
What do you think the prisoner might be doing tonight?
Having bread and water, I hope. It's more than we've had. Daniel, you see Humpty Dumpty?
Humpty Dumpty doesn't move. He get nothing more.
Good boy.
Daniel, hey. Hello.
Hi, Dan.
You'd think Queensland's Sunshine Coast is a wonderful place to raise a family. It coaxed the Morcombes from Victoria years ago, and their home videos typically show a young family's fun.
Dad, what about my TV?
But they also reveal why Daniel's abduction and murder has touched all of us so deeply. In these pictures, we see ourselves and our own kids.
It's just an amazing run of incredible sequences that are all bad. And you can't undo it, I'm afraid.
No, but you must just go over that and over that and over that and ask why.
Yeah,
Why
look, there's
and why us?
lots of things, you know.
So many what-ifs that day. None of us know.
It was early Sunday afternoon on the 7th of December 2003. Less than 2 weeks to Daniel's 14th birthday, less than 3 to Christmas. Daniel needed a haircut and he wanted to buy Christmas presents for his family. So he left home about 1 kilometre away and walked here to catch a bus as he'd done countless times before. From what we now know, Daniel's fate was sealed that day by a collision of unlikely and unlucky events. Ultimately, for Daniel, the difference between life and death came down to just 3 minutes. A tiny moment in time that, as it so tragically turned out, certainly long enough for evil to strike. As Daniel waits at the bus stop that day, Brett Peter Cowan is alone in his white four-wheel drive. He's 34, known to police for a string of crimes, drugs and theft, but most seriously, vicious attacks and rapes on young boys. Tragically for Daniel, out of sight up the road is the bus he should have been catching, but it's broken down. Brett Cowan drives past the broken down bus and then, around the next bend, he spots the stranded 13-year-old.
He knew the area incredibly well. Saw the kid in the red t-shirt, his urges have come back, and he's a filthy person. So he's probably thought to himself, it's time.
In that very instant, this predator decides to strike. He takes the very next exit, less than 50 metres from Daniel, and doubles back to a car park behind where Daniel is waiting.
Perhaps we should have, as parents, equipped Daniel with additional skills to recognise potential danger and to run away when a goofy person's perhaps trying to attract his attention, and in a moment of weakness, encourage him to go with him in his vehicle. You know, that's just a terrible thing that haunts us, to be honest.
At the bus stop, Cowan loiters behind Daniel, pretending to also wait for the bus. Witnesses remember his distinctive stance. They also remember seeing Daniel drawing in the dirt. Then, the best luck for Cowan, the worst for Daniel. The replacement bus doesn't stop, even though the driver knows Daniel's there.
Is that the last bus?
I think so.
Daniel doesn't know it, but another bus is coming to pick him up. It's only 3 minutes away.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But less than 3 minutes is all it takes for Brett Cowan to swoop.
So your car's this way.
How do you think Cowan convinced Daniel to get into the car?
Well, that's one thing I just don't understand. I don't know. maybe he was frustrated. I don't know how we convinced him. I don't know.
Cowan doesn't take Daniel to the shops as he promised. He drives 30 minutes south to a secluded farm bordered by bush. By this time, Daniel Morcombe must have been beside himself with fear.
It's a terrible place.
It's a scary
There's no way known.
You would, if you were sitting in the passenger seat with an unknown driver down that dirt road in feral bush, you would know, your body would be telling you, I'm in a hell of a lot of trouble here, and you'd probably smell death, you know. You've really got to be thinking, I've got to get out of here, if he was able to.
What exactly happened to Daniel will never be known. Cowan, a crim and a liar, claims he panicked and strangled Daniel very soon after arriving at the farm. He then dumped the little boy in the bush. When did you first realise something was wrong?
It was about 4:15. I just got a weird feeling, I don't know what it was. So I said to Bruce, I'm going to go up to the bus stop to see if Daniel's there. And I saw the broken down bus being put on a tow truck. So Bruce went down to see if he was on the bus that left at 5:05, so he got there about 5:30 and he came back, and we knew straight away there was something wrong. We knew that night.
After doing their own immediate search for their son, Bruce and Denise called in the police. Assistant Commissioner Mike Condon. How quickly did police take Daniel's disappearance seriously?
I think the first day there has been some criticism about the way in which it was handled, but certainly I was on the ground 2 days later as the head of the homicide squad.
So by that time you knew this wasn't just a runaway?
You never know for sure, but sometimes you just get a gut feeling that this is not right and it's not going to end well.
He just looks so innocent. Just doing his schoolwork, not a care in the world.
As hours became days and days weeks, the search for Daniel just got bigger and bigger.
If anyone's got any information and it's on their conscience, can they please come forward and unease our burden.
He very quickly became Australia's most recognised missing person, and that was thanks to the unrelenting efforts of his mum and dad.
It's a revolution that they've started, and it reminds us every day our responsibility to make sure our children are safe.
You know, we were never going to go away, and we hope that our attitude has inspired some of those police officers along the journey that have been frustrated and thought, this is never going to go anywhere. Let's shelve it. Let's turn it to a cold case. We said, no, you haven't finished yet. Keep going, guys.
Welcome back to the hunt for Daniel Morcombe's killer. We now know that Brett Cowan is an opportunistic and devious sexual predator. But Bruce and Denise Morcombe could have no idea about Cowan's evil past, as their desperate search for Daniel turned into a relentless hunt for his killer. Cowan's depravity began 16 years before Daniel's murder, when he snatched and brutally molested a 7-year-old boy in Brisbane. That young boy survived, but is now a broken man. Tonight he's bravely speaking after a 27-year silence. His story is harrowing and chilling for its similarities to Daniel's case. At 33 and 6'5", Tim Nichols is a big bear of a man. He's a farmer with a family of his own now, but most of his life has been shadowed by a violent sexual attack he suffered when he was just 7 years old.
I was a bright student, Then after that, my schooling, my attitude, my happiness didn't have it no more.
He took a lot away from you, didn't he?
He took everything. He took my life.
For Brett Cowan, the young Tim Nichols was just prey, a plaything who, like Daniel, just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Did he say anything to you? Did he say he was sorry?
Just said he would find me and kill me if I said anything. And I was petrified all my life. You know, was he just going to turn up? Was he going to get me?
Suburban Brisbane, Saturday the 5th of December 1987, and Tim and his young mates are at their regular childcare centre.
Maybe a bit more. Right?
Also there is 18-year-old Brett Cowan. Unbeknown to the kids or their parents, he's a young crim, made to work as part of his court-ordered community service, punishment for break and enter and stealing.
He was in orange overalls, and I just went to give him a helping hand with a couple other kids.
And what was he like?
Nice. He'd talk to you.
For the next hour, Cowan tries to groom Tim, gives him jobs and befriends him. After a while, the 7-year-old gets bored until Cowan deviously lures him back. This moment in time changes everything for this happy-go-lucky child.
Let me think. It's a pretty good golf ball.
No, he just yelled out, "Who wants a golf ball?" And we all put our hands up, and I don't know why, but he just pointed to me. And he said, "You have to come into the toilets." And I said no. And then he grabbed me and picked me up and took me into the toilets.
And at that point that he picked you up, what did you think was going on?
I didn't know. I couldn't say anything. He had his hand over my mouth.
Do you remember what you were feeling or fearing at that point?
Scared. Didn't know what was happening.
The abduction is as sickeningly brazen as it is opportunistic. Cowan locks himself in a cubicle with the petrified Tim. Do you remember what you said to him?
I told him I was going to tell my mum. And he started to strangle me. He threatened he was going to kill me. He grabbed me by the throat, and if I didn't do it, I thought I was going to die.
So that threat, you believed it? You believed that he would kill you?
I was only a kid, of course I did. I thought I was dying that day. Like, I didn't know what he was going to do to me.
How extensive was the abuse?
Horrific. I have trouble telling anyone about it. I want to tell you what he done, but it's hard.
Yeah, it's not because you've forgotten, is it?
I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten any of it.
Behind that locked cubicle door, Cowan repeatedly raped Tim. It only stopped when a childcare worker called out his name.
If it wasn't for that person, I don't know what her name was or who she was. If she didn't come and say, "Tim, are you in there?" I believe I wouldn't be here.
Cowan was quickly arrested for the rape of Tim Nichols, but he was also given bail. And like a coward, Cowan did a runner. He evaded police for 2 years. When he was finally caught in New South Wales, he was brought back here to Queensland to face justice. and to face Tim, who crucially was brave enough to testify against him. You're just a little kid. How tough was it for you to be in that courtroom and to tell everybody what had happened to you?
I had to look at him. It was hard. I had to point him to the person who attacked me, and he was sitting there with a smile on his face, just staring at me, and I still remember that. It was like it was a game to him, like he was just smiling. And that's all I can remember, him just smiling across the room.
Unbelievably, Cowan got 2 years for his rape of Tim, and even more astonishing, served little more than half the sentence. So imagine then the Morcombe's horror when they discovered Cowan's sick past and just how little time he spent behind bars.
Well, that's something we don't understand. We've read his police brief and we knew his past criminal history, but we've never been allowed to say anything about him. And if he'd never been let out of jail, we wouldn't be sitting here today. Daniel would still be alive. This would never have happened.
It's not an isolated case. He hasn't made a blue and regretted it. You know, he's been a demon for nearly 30 years. It's just a shocking record.
Cowan was always a ticking time bomb. Before he murdered Daniel, there would be yet another victim. Welcome back. The hunt for Daniel Morcombe's killer is all the more traumatic by the fact that Brett Peter Cowan had a sordid history of pedophilia. After attacking Tim Nichols back in 1987, Cowan moved to Darwin, where he'd strike again, and this time he'd try to kill the boy. Tonight, for the first time, Cowan's then-girlfriend speaks out, and as you'll see, she's still haunted by every detail. It was Darwin, 1993, and this woman, Tracy, was just 18. Little did she know the man she was sharing a caravan with here, her very first boyfriend, was a predator who was about to strike again. And even now, it's harrowing for her to talk about it. People have described Brett Cowan as an animal, as a monster. And you got very, very close to this man, didn't you? How would you describe him?
At the beginning, before I knew anything, charming and confident, very happy. But that was just a cover for the evil man he is. He's not even a man. I don't even know what to call him.
Clearly he's very good at living 2 lives, isn't he?
Very good. He's fought a lot of people.
This is Tracy's first time back to the caravan park in 20 years. And the little boy who was attacked, how close did he live to you?
2 caravans away. You know, 20 steps.
This is also the first time Tracy's retraced the events of the evening of Thursday, the 23rd of September, 1993, when Brett Cowan closed in on his 6-year-old neighbour. How difficult would it have been for Brett to lure that little boy down here?
Oh, not difficult. He trusted Brett. He knew Brett, and he must have said something to him. Like, he couldn't have taken him screaming. People would have heard, you know.
It was just like any other get-together. Tracy and friends from the caravan park were having their weekly barbecue. Brett was still at work, or so Tracy thought.
Can you go and find your brother? Quick, go and find him for Mummy. Mummy's just going to have a drink.
And the young boy was nowhere to be found. As dusk fell, his mother became frantic.
He was kidnapped sometime between 5 and 7 p.m. Brett took him out the side gate at BP Palms Caravan Park. Took him into the bushes. Molested him for I don't know how long. And left him in a boot of a burnt out car with rocks and bricks and everything on top. And left for dead.
By 7:30 p.m, Brett was back, hiding in his caravan. As the hours wore on, there was still no sign of the boy. Did you see Brett that day? That night?
That night, yes.
What was his demeanour like?
Very weird.
What was it about his behaviour that was really weird?
He came home and had sex with me. I didn't like the smell or what he was doing to me. I told him to leave me alone.
Covered in blood, with a punctured lung and broken collarbone, both eyes hemorrhaging because during the rape Cowan had tried to suffocate him. Somehow, miraculously, the 6-year-old managed to find his way out of the bush and back to the caravan park. The attack was so violent, the injuries so extensive, it was thought the child had been in a road accident.
And for days we thought he'd been hit by a car. For days, 2 to 3 days. And then word got around that something more sinister had happened.
What was the word? What were people saying?
They were looking for somebody in the park that had kidnapped him and molested him. They were looking for a rock spider.
So you had no inkling, you had no suspicion that the rock spider was Brett Cowan, your boyfriend. What was his reaction to the word that this child had been molested by a pedophile?
Oh, we've got to get that bastard, we've got to find him, you know, whoever he is.
And you believe that he had a hatred of pedophiles?
He wanted to kill him himself. If he said, we'll find him, we'll get him.
Cowan was sentenced to 7 years for his brutal attack on that 6-year-old boy here in Darwin, but served just 4.5 years after telling police he knew he needed help. Even then, a lone psychologist raised doubts about Cowan's claims of remorse. But the judge, despite noting that Cowan was a pathological liar, gave him the benefit of the doubt. Clearly, a horrible pattern had been set. Opportunistic attacks on very young boys, with Cowan becoming ever more violent. It seems, with his release, the abduction and murder of Daniel Morcombe was inevitable. Are you comfortable with the priority you gave to Cowan at the time?
Along with the other suspects we were looking at, absolutely. And bearing in mind, he was never considered anything else but a high-level person of interest.
Assistant Commissioner Mike Condon says police first interviewed Cowan, a known pedophile, 2 weeks after Daniel's disappearance. There were holes in his alibi, but even still, they didn't have the proof they needed. Considering his past, considering that he'd placed himself at the spot where Daniel had gone missing, considering that there had been some doubt about his timings, why wasn't he the person of highest interest?
Because there were other persons of interest who were familiar with the area, that if you were ticking off boxes, they ticked the boxes as well.
20,000 leads, 15,000 inquiries with Crime Stoppers. This investigation was 10 times the size of most homicide cases. While police were swamped with information, so too were Bruce and Denise, who tirelessly followed up every call and clue and conducted many of their own searches.
We're looking, in a junk pile, we found some red cloth material, and of course, we were immediately drawn that is potentially Daniel's T-shirt. So,
We went back to that one, searching on our hands and knees, scraping with our fingernails were all scraped. Remember that one?
It's flashing green. I think it's working.
Their investigations took them into a world they never wanted to see, to talk to scumbags they never wanted to meet.
I'll sit here, is that all right? Yeah.
You were confronting pedophiles.
Yeah.
You
but they're generally weak, gutless people, really.
Did you hear some terrible things?
Oh, look, over the journey, people fed us some shocking lies,
so many
really.
different stories of what happened to Daniel.
Yeah.
Drugged, smashed with the steel bar, in the bushes, hidden under excavators, and hundreds of things, hundreds of different things, emails and letters we used to get all the time.
But ultimately, their biggest win was finally convincing the coroner to hold an inquest in 2010 to cross-examine the long list of persons of interest.
Of course, the Queensland coroner has additional powers to police. They can ask a person of interest very specific questions under oath, and they can be compelled to answer those. So we thought that was the right way to go, and it proved a game breaker.
On the 31st of March 2011, 7 years after Daniel was taken, Brett Peter Cowan, now living in Perth, was forced to appear at the inquest in Brisbane.
As Cowan was walking into the courtroom, I just got a really cold shiver, and the whole courtroom just went, oh my God, and I turned around to Bruce and I went, my God, that's him. And he was just horrible. He was horrible.
He was asked a series of questions at the inquest. One of his responses was that he couldn't have abducted Daniel because...
No, he said he didn't. Daniel was 13 years old. He liked 6 to 8-year-old boys, so he wouldn't have done it. And we just went, oh my God, you gotta be joking. Now the police knew all this as well. I mean, after the coronial, we nearly flew over to Perth.
To do what?
To find him. But luckily we didn't, because we didn't know the covert operation had started a few days beforehand.
Independently of the inquest, police were reviewing the Morcombe case, at which time Cowan's alibi fell apart. He was due to fly home to Perth after 2 days in the witness box, and it was now police launched their audacious undercover operation.
Where are you going to Perth?
Cowan is now the prime suspect. How would you describe the police operation that happens from there?
Absolutely remarkable. Who would have thought such a wacky covert operation would work like that?
By the time Cowan was on the flight back home to Western Australia, police had planted an undercover cop right next to him, going by the name of Joe. They exchanged phone numbers. Contact has been made.
00. Yep. 776.
What Cowan so clearly thought was just a chance meeting with a like-minded fellow passenger was the in police so desperately needed. Cowan was hooked, and so the predator was now the prey. This 5-hour friendship turned into a massive 5-month-long undercover investigation, so detailed, so ambitious, it needs to be seen to be believed. Welcome back to the search for Daniel Morcombe and the hunt for his killer. Daniel's parents, Bruce and Denise, always wanted to find their son first and get justice for him second. After 8 long years, undercover police are about to help them realise both goals. They set an elaborate trap to catch a pedophile, but that was just the beginning of some stunning police work. It started so simply.
Sorry, mate, not there.
A chance meeting on a long flight to Perth.
Cheers.
Or so this pedophile thought.
Keep your mouth shut. You get a little bit more extra cash.
A friendship is struck.
I mean, 100%. Let's do it.
And the trap is set.
Check that out.
From there, undercover police, posing as a band of criminal brothers, recruit Brett Cowan into their gang. Their organised crime spree starts with small-time drug dealing.
That one, white.
And grows into debt collecting,
4, 5.
pimping,
Better be.
and buying and selling weapons.
That's a reliable one.
Very quickly, Cowan's trust is won over. That was the breakthrough, wasn't it?
Well, in terms of taking us to a new level, absolutely.
When you are part of a covert operation like that, that is so extensive, so broad, how nervous are you of pulling it off?
You don't sleep.
Queensland Assistant Commissioner Mike Condon coordinated the operation in Perth from Brisbane for 5 sleepless months.
There's a high expectation when someone murders a child that it will be solved.
The stakes were high. They had one chance to get it right.
No, it was extreme caution. I was very mindful that this was a critical milestone in the investigation, and to progress to a point where I was satisfied we had sufficient evidence to arrest, corroboration was critical.
The extent of the police sting in Western Australia was breathtaking. More than 20 different scenarios, leading to the most important setup of all. In a hotel room, a meeting between Cowan and the crime gang boss, Arnold.
I don't want the cops after me.
Cowan is being offered a role in a big drug job for which he'll get $100,000.
We've got a problem.
So he doesn't jeopardise the deal or the gang. He needs to come clean on his dirty past.
You've done the Daniel Morcombe murder.
If he does, Arnold promises to fix it.
So what do I need to fix?
Is there something you need to tell me, or... And bearing in mind that this whole, what we do is based on respect and honesty, all right?
The squeeze is on. The undercover cop tells Cowan he doesn't care what he's done, he just needs to know.
I've got no qualms at all. What they get up to doesn't faze me at all.
Brett Peter Cowan is suck it in. It's so quiet, almost nonchalant, but this is the moment undercover police have been working and hoping for. Cowan confesses to Daniel's abduction and murder.
So what do I need to fix?
Yeah, okay. No. Yeah, I do.
All right, so you hear that?
Hearing him explain what he did and how he did it, does that answer all the questions you have over what happened to Daniel?
He is a lying pedophile. So you've really got to assess what you can check, what you can verify, but what he actually did, you know, nothing stacks up.
He never got to molest him or anything like that. He panicked and I panicked and grabbed him around the throat, and before I knew it, he was dead.
Why didn't Daniel have clothes on? I don't understand that. And why wasn't Daniel's belt looped through his pants? You know, was he bound up in his belt? Really, we don't want to go there. Sometimes it's best we don't know.
It's the 11th of August 2011. He doesn't know it yet, but this is Brett Cowan's last day of freedom. Not only have the police recorded a video confession, they've now convinced Cowan to bring them back to where he killed Daniel, on the pretext of making sure there's no incriminating evidence left at the site.
Those covert operators, we can never say thank you enough to those guys and to the people who set that up as well. For what they did, they had to live and breathe with Cowan for months.
And could you believe that Cowan fell for it?
That's the amazing thing. We can't believe how stupid Cowan was.
I was the arresting officer. One of my aims of the day was to conduct an interview with Mr. Cowan if he chose to.
For Detective Senior Sergeant Steve Blanchfield, everything was riding on this moment. The police net was closing in.
We had a number of officers hidden. We also had recording equipment so that we were recording the conversations and videoing what was occurring. That was how it happened.
Nice room down there.
Cowan, still unaware of the trap, takes the undercover police on a grisly tour.
About here, like somewhere here.
They mark their path to later retrace their steps. And then the arresting officers pounce.
Police! 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 Down on your knees! Get down! Get down! Down on your knees!
Don't move. Brett Cowan, you are under arrest for the murder of Daniel Morcombe. You have the right to remain silent.
What was his reaction when he saw you?
He was a little stunned for a moment, but not a lot has changed with Mr. Cowan throughout this. He's been very composed and shown very little in the way of emotion.
So you didn't see a moment in his eyes when the light bulb went off and he's gone, oh no, I've just been caught.
There was a moment.
So, police had their man. Cowan had first confessed, and then incredibly, he'd brought them back here to the area where the murder took place. But still, they didn't have Daniel. What came next was as impressive as the undercover police operation. The forensic team now took over, and for the next 3 months here, on hands and knees, they literally left no stone unturned.
We had to think outside the square for all of our options, but we didn't stop until we found Daniel.
For the first time, police are prepared to reveal the intricate work they did in this sensitive place and detail the horror of what Cowan did here. How do you find coming back here?
I find it very sad.
Inspector Artie Van Penhouse was charged with pulling together a massive forensic team 2 days after Cowan was arrested.
To be honest, that one phone call changed everybody's life.
Yeah. Police had been led to this place by a man who had confessed to murdering Daniel and leaving him here. Now they had to find him.
The information was that Mr. Cowan had arrived here before throwing Daniel over the edge. Climbed down the escarpment there and dragged Daniel down to an area which was about 30 metres down there to a pond of water.
But despite more than 1,000 SES volunteers and police painstakingly scouring this place, the first days of the search were fruitless. 4 days and there's nothing. What was that like?
It was extremely frustrating.
You weren't giving up hope at this stage?
There was no way of giving up hope. This was our first window of opportunity in 8 years.
Their faith paid off, because on the 4th day of searching, they had their first breakthrough.
Day 4 was both a exciting one for us and a sad one, because it was proof to us that we were in the right spot. We had found a globe shoe, which was similar to what Daniel was wearing at the time he disappeared.
And they found another shoe.
Yes, a couple of days later, they found the left shoe just over here.
So then I guess the drive was to find Daniel himself.
That's correct. I was quietly optimistic that we were going to find more.
Inspector Penhouse was right. While this gully was being searched, the police diving team was concentrating on Coochin Creek, a few kilometres away. It's where Cowan had tossed Daniel's clothes after murdering him. They found remnants of Daniel's underpants, a belt, and his incredibly well-preserved shorts.
And they were caught in the roots of a fallen log down there.
You couldn't imagine that they'd still be there.
No, it was an amazing find, that's for sure.
It took another 4 weeks of meticulous hand-sifting through the sands and undergrowth, but finally they found what they were here for.
This is the location where we found the majority of Daniel's remains, in this area here.
17 fragments.
17 fragments in total. It doesn't sound much, but it was a major find for us.
I just can't quite comprehend, you know, how do you react when you're told we think that this might be your son?
Commissioner Bob Atkinson phoned and said they found a bone and they didn't know whether it was Daniel or not, and then he phoned back and said yes, it is the bones of a young juvenile. So we just, you know, assumed it was Daniel, but we didn't know until a week later. It was pretty tough.
Yeah. Tough too was Cowan's decision to plead not guilty despite the overwhelming evidence. And then 2.5 years after Daniel was found and Cowan arrested, the jury went out. Bruce and Denise would have to wait another 24 tense hours. Denise, what are you most anxious about?
Just the longer we have to wait, whether it's going to be guilty or not guilty. None of us like waiting.
Finally, the phone call to return to court. And the guilty verdict everyone was waiting for.
Compelling evidence has found beyond reasonable doubt Mr. Cowan's guilt.
Welcome back. On Friday, Brett Peter Cowan was sentenced to life in prison for murdering Daniel Morcombe. The judge described Cowan as a convincing, plausible and adaptable liar. Now it's fitting that Bruce and Denise Morcombe, both towers of dignity, strength and respect, have the last word on the killer, his sentence, and how they'd like Daniel to be remembered.
How's your lunch?
Beautiful.
Nice.
Thank you.
On Friday, the Morcombes tried to be a normal family, if just for a moment.
We bought that clown at the markets years ago.
A long time ago, yeah.
They chose not to go to court to see Brett Cowan be sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum non-parole period of 20 years for murdering their Daniel.
So how many entries did we end up with on Facebook last night?
When I went to bed, it was about 1.27 million.
But they were relieved when they heard.
It's our record by heaps, eh? Justice Atkinson has delivered a really substantial penalty, and we acknowledge that. He'll be there forever.
You reckon?
Yep, he'll die in jail.
Denise, what was your reaction? 20 years.
No, I was happy with that. You know, hopefully he's dead by the time he's 60, so we won't have to worry about the non-parole period.
So, for you, is this it? I mean, do you feel like you've come to the end of something today?
It feels a bit strange. It sort of feels like it's sort of not real at the moment. You know, we've got all Daniel's belongings at home, and maybe we can go through them and sort that sort of thing out.
Why have you held on till now to do that?
Never wanted to let him go, I suppose. So we know the answer.
You'll never let him go.
No. No. He's always that 13-year-old boy.
Busy? Yes, it's a big couple of days.
Soon after Daniel went missing, Bruce and Denise started the Daniel Morcombe Foundation, initially as a way to publicise their son's disappearance. But it's grown into so much more, and as Daniel's legacy, its good work will go on.
No, my body belongs to me. No.
Educating school kids all over the country and supporting people like Tim Nichols.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
People you wanted to meet.
Nice to meet you, how are you?
A gentle but broken soul who 3 decades later is still struggling because of Brett Cowan.
He won't get any more.
I hope not.
No, he won't.
What would you like to do to him?
Kill him. So he doesn't get out and he can't do it to anyone else. I'd serve jail time myself to know that other kids are safe. I don't know if it's the wrong thing or the right thing, but I'd sooner sit inside and know that I've saved someone, because I know he'll do it again if he gets out.
Can you ever forgive Brett Cowan for what he's done?
No. I won't forgive Brett Cowan. He destroyed an innocent boy and he took his life away. No, I'll never forgive him.
And you, Bruce?
He's committed the most heinous of crimes. You do not offend against our children, you do not abduct them, and you do not attempt to sexually assault them, and you certainly do not kill them. And then, after all of that, show no remorse. That's why there's no forgiveness, because he's had no remorse to the family. And stuff him.
Stuff him.
Yep.
Yeah, stuff him.
What about the debate of having a public register of pedophiles so that people are aware of where these sex offenders are living?
I think once they've offended the first time and been charged and found guilty for that offence, they should be on the register from day one.
So no second chance?
No, no second chance.
Brett Peter Cowan will only be remembered for all the wrong reasons. But Daniel Morcombe will be remembered for so much more. A child so loved by his parents and a nation, he'll never be forgotten. What do you think Daniel would think of you, his mum and dad, fighting so hard for him?
You'd hope he'd be proud. He was a very shy person, so, you know, to have Daniel Morcombe up in lights almost constantly at the moment, he would be a little taken back by that, I'm sure.
You know, you two hold it together so well. Everyone talks about how brave you are and how controlled you are and how amazing you are that you can actually be here in the public eye talking about your son and talking about what's happened. Are you always this controlled? Are you always this together?
No.
You can lie.
You haven't said
no, you can't lie.
This is not under oath.
No, this is your moment of truth, Bruce.
No, look.
No.
Lie. Come on, we're just beautiful people.
No, we do have a lot of arguments because we're together 24/7.
Yeah.
So we both always can't be right. That's the problem.
Do you think, you know, after all this week, this very, very big week, can you rest easier now?
Probably not. No, I mean we're public figures and people know what we're doing and where we are and who we are. And we're the parents with the boy that was missing for 10 years. But we'll do our best.
Good luck. Thank you.
Good on you.
Great. Well done. Bruce and Denise are the strongest people I've met, but they need your support to continue the work of the Daniel Morcombe Foundation. Already hundreds of thousands of children have heard the Morcombes' Keep Kids Safe campaign. You can help by visiting their website, danielmorcombe.com.au.